Okay, as you start to arrive, let's get started. This is the 70th Security Thought Leadership webinar. And we've been here every Tuesday and Thursday, some other times too, where we've been debating a topic of crucial interest to the security world. And the idea of thought leadership is that we critique today what's going on in order to get a better type of security tomorrow. And it's an important exercise, it's an important thing to do. And today's topic is building on this theme of what's in a name. Now, those of you who join these webinars regularly will recall we had a debate a couple of weeks ago, and we looked at the relationship between guard and security officer, what terminology we should use. And I'm sure that point will come up again today. But what also came out of that webinar was this wasn't a terminology problem just about that level. This pervades the security sector. So we've got three experts today to talk to us about their views, as is the normal way. And what we're going to be doing is asking each of them to introduce themselves. And once we've done that, we'll invite them to make an opening statement. That's 3 minutes when they can say what they like about this subject area. Then after that, we'll come to you, the audience, for your questions. Can you please use the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen if you've got any questions? And we'll endeavour to get to you as soon as we can. Please, can you put your questions in early? Because that way we can make sure we incorporate them, at least we'll try to. So without further ado then, I'm going to go to my panellists and I'll ask them each to introduce themselves. And we're going to start off all the way over in the United States with Kathy. Kathy, can you please introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I'm Kathy Lavender. I'm talking to you today from Virginia on the East Coast of the US. And I am a recruiter in the security arena. In January, I'll celebrate my 21st anniversary of doing this. I do routine search for organizations around the world in a couple of different key areas: security, in that case, it means physical and cyber, as well as investigation and intelligence. And as I said, I'm based in Virginia. Clients tend to be multinational companies, high net worth individuals, family offices, asset managers, occasionally academia, sometimes NGOs or nonprofits, but it's a busy space and it continues to be busy at this moment in time.
That's of interest in itself, Kathy. We'll come back to that. And from the United States of America all the way over to Darwin in Australia. Raymond, please introduce yourself.
G'day from Darwin, Northern Territory of Australia. My name's Ray Andersson. I'm an active semi-retired security professional with over 30 years experience, including military security, frontline security and industrial, commercial, retail and mining operations security. I've dealt with security management, security advisor services at national and corporate security levels with consultant work across many levels of government and not-for-profit organisations. I've also represented the Australian security profession internationally in various forums from Washington, DC to London, Beijing, Kuala Lumpur, Singapore and Jakarta, and have taught security internationally. It is a pleasure to be part of the discussion. That's it.
Raymond, thank you very much indeed. We get a lot of commentary on these webinars, and one thing people say universally is how good we are at attracting our panelists. That's two of you. Let's meet the third also in that category. Mike, introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon, Martin. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending where you are. Thanks for being here. Mike Hurst. I've been in the security sector for about 30 years. I'm here in the tropical paradise of northwest London in the UK. I've been recruiting in the sector for about 28, 29 years on and off, mainly on. I'm also involved in various different volunteer association organisations. Currently, I'm the director of IFPO in the UK. I've previously been involved with, I am involved with ACES globally, Security Institute, all sorts of people, but great to be here. Hopefully I can chip in something useful.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm sure you will. So that's the panel. Let's then ask our panel to give us their opening statements. 3 minutes when they have the chance to say what they want to about this topic. So back to the United States. Kathy, your opening statement, please.
Thank you, Martin. So I'm going to be a little bit of a provocateur and say that titles are wildly inconsistent. I'm sure we all agree with that. They're irregular at times, but here's perhaps the provocative or controversial element of my perspective. Sometimes they're quite and totally irrelevant. And I think that people get hung up on titles far too often. I think you have to look at the substance of the role. I have people who sometimes tell me they're not interested in an opportunity because of the title. I think that's incredibly short-sighted. And yes, there is a great deal of confusion about titles. Are we talking, when we talk CSO, physical or cyber? Oftentimes in my job postings, I have to specify, because otherwise, if it's a physical program management and the title is called CSO, I'll hear from a ton of people who have backgrounds in cybersecurity, and they're absolutely irrelevant in that situation. So I know that we need to gain some clarity around that title in particular, but others, I think it's a process of evolution. They're malleable. Titles, by the way, are always negotiable. I tell people that. And my clients have been not racing to adopt one that I know certain organizations have been promulgating, enterprise risk management. I love the concept. It's just that so far that title has not caught on. So that's my perspective from a high level.
Kathy, thank you very much indeed. Well, plenty of food for thought there already. Let's go back to Australia then. Raymond, your opening statement, please.
Well, security titles can be deceptive at the best of times, especially at the executive level. We've had the argument about security guards and security officers. It gets worse and worse as we get higher. We can have a security advisor in a government agency who will be the practitioner in the general security world, whereas a security advisor now in private enterprise is IT and cyber security specified. And also within a government organisation in the US and most Western nations, security advisors at government levels would be at a middle management level, whereas in the private sector, they could be at the executive management level. So when you're applying for a position and they're just a security advisor, depends on where you're going, can be very deceptive. So that means that the applicant has to really delve deeply into the company and the organisation themselves to understand what the job is, read the duty statement, and try to get a picture of where they're sitting. As Kathy mentioned, the CSOs and CISOs are starting to blur. I've got my own opinions on those ones, how they should be talking. They're the business level, but they're another area where in private enterprise, CSOs are taking over more of the cyber security area, and sometimes to the detriment of physical security or general protective security. I'll leave it at that and move on to Mike.
Thank you very much indeed, Ray. You may well leave it there, but we're going to come back in a minute to you on this distinction between those two, because that's a key one. Just a reminder to audience, if you can get your questions in, use the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen. Get it as soon as you can, please. And after we've heard from Mike, we'll endeavour to come to your questions. So over to you, Mike. Mike, your opening statement, please.
Thanks, Martin. To probably disappointingly, I think I agree largely with Kathy and Raymond, which is always makes for a poor debate. But it's a very topical discussion. I mean, you mentioned that we had one the other week you hosted about the security guard, security officer job title. That's a very emotive one, particularly here in the UK, and I'm not going to go over that one now, but clearly an important topic. In many ways, job titles shouldn't be important. The focus really should be on the role, the authority that comes with the role, the responsibilities, and how someone executes those. In reality, their job titles are really important, both to employers and employees. Some companies refer to the salespeople as account managers, area managers, sales executives. It adds the appearance of seniority when they're talking to a customer, and the employees also benefit from being perceived in the more senior role. Things like director obviously has a legal meaning, i.e. the director of a company, as with directors' liabilities, but also you should be the account director, just as a title indicates some seniority. A job title can help boost how someone feels about the role they're doing. If they feel they're in a more important role, they'll feel better at themselves. Give some credibility to the peers, to the customers, and being a bit cynical, which is unlike me, I know. It's cheaper to give someone a new job title than to give them a pay rise sometimes, or always probably. And again, as we touched on, the C-suite, CSO, COO, CEO, CIO, CTO, president, director, vice president. It is a minefield out there. Different things with different people, and you get someone who puts their job title down as CEO. And the two people in the company. What does that mean? So it is important. I think sometimes we look at it too much sometimes, but it's an important subject, and I look forward to the questions ahead.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Well, let's come to you, Kathy, with the question that Simon Chan has asked. And this is about the use of language. I mean, one of the strange things, Kathy, is that, let me put this point to you. Of course it matters. It matters a tremendous amount, because we've just heard the three of you speak about the different uses. And that's confusing to all the people we'd like to attract to the security sector, who just don't understand it. They just don't get what you get with a role. And that's the real problem here. We're undermining our attempts to attract attention of people who might otherwise be interested. Kathy first, and I'll come to Raymond.
I agree with you, Martin, that attracting the next generation of talent is a critical issue and need. And I worry about that. I don't, spend sleepless nights thinking about things that I can't control, but the things that I can have an impact with, I want to attract this next generation of talent. Risk management is a vital function in any organization of any size. And if we can't attract the talent to this field in the future, then we are doomed to irrelevance and frustration. So I think that we need to come up with some common language. I'm just not terribly optimistic that it's going to be an easy process. Maybe it goes back to kind of relying on organizations like ISO to promulgate things in this regard. Because, if we wait for organizations, private sector organizations to do it, it may not happen. Now, some of the large security organizations should take on this battle and try to address it, because it is critical to the future. But it does matter in organizations that are heavily hierarchical, structured, and traditional in their thinking. Titles matter in those organizations because they align with compensation and they align with visibility to senior leadership. So when I say they're irrelevant in some organizations, generally I'm talking about organizations that still don't have an established security culture, some who are very flat organizations. And I hear clients in flat organizations say to me all the time, if somebody's concerned about a title, they're coming to the wrong place, because we don't even use titles. And I hear that more and more among startups, tech companies. What I have seen people adopt are functioning as references. So they might be called anything under the sun in their organization, but when they're outreaching and communicating with their peers, they might say, essentially, I'm the CSO.
Okay, Raymond, you made the point that different titles are used for different posts and it can be confusing. I mean, given that this is a serious impediment to attracting people to the security world from outside it, isn't it?
It definitely is. It's also an impediment to getting an understanding from even our governments, because many politicians still look at security as against guns and guards. So trying to get the general public to be aware of what the higher level security people actually do is probably a key aspect, and the associations can come in here. You've got the other area where in some general organisations you have a manager of security operations. He looks after the guards and general security within an organisation. In a lot of private enterprise now, I've noticed that the security operations manager is fully cybersecurity. So there's a total switch here. And if you're applying for a job as a manager of security operations or security operations manager, you need different skill sets. And it's the same for a business continuity manager. I know many of my colleagues, or some of my colleagues, actually have done the course, and they practice business continuity within their organisations. Currently, I've noticed in recruitment, business continuity managers are now cybersecurity, information being the key asset, and they are in the executive management level. So it's very confusing out there for people who want to enter the stream. They have to really understand what they're moving into. If you're moving out of the military or police to come into private security, this becomes a real challenge unless you've done a lot of homework.
Yeah, Raymond, just while you're on that topic then, Kathy outlined a route, maybe associations and ISO taking on the responsibility for thinking differently. What do you see as the route out of that confusion? What can we do? Raymond, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. That's a very good question. I think associations have got to work with ISOs and with other organisations and perhaps even with some governments, because this is something you can't just do in one country. This is something we've got to get a grasp on internationally. I know in Beijing, the term of director of different areas is quite prevalent, and it's a status symbol. Is there a route for a better way of looking at this, a common language, perhaps having a generic title? So if you're dealing with people, you become a manager. So you got a security manager, and in addition to that, you then specify what the specialist areas that you're doing. So it should be security manager, corporate security, security manager intelligence or investigations, security manager cyber security. That's just throwing something out there.
Okay, well, I think that's helpful, actually. Mike, we're clear, I think, that this is confusing. Any thoughts you've got on the route to making it less confusing? Where can we look to? Where can we go on this?
I think a lot of it's just educating people what the terms mean. If you're an accountant, you say I'm an accountant. You know, say let's say I'm a tax accountant, I'm a corporate finance accountant, whatever you as an accountant, and then you specialize after that. Ultimately, it's just security. Security is security. There's different disciplines with that. Cyber, investigations, loss prevention, it's still security. So it can be job titles, can be broad across each thing. It's how people perceive them, what they expect from them. ACEs are, and there have been some career pathway documents, and ACEs have done one. IFPA have something that I've seen recently, but education. There's stuff out there, but ACEs is very much pioneering the enterprise security risk management, the ESRM rather than ERM, and that the ESRM is basically treating everything the same. So every risk is treated the same, using the same processes for assessing it, for treating it, for dealing with it. So the approach for dealing with a cyber risk is the same with the approach of dealing with a physical risk. You identify the assets, identify the threats to those assets, who owns those assets, and how you mitigate them. You can apply ISO 31000 or whatever it is, but the processes are broadly the same. We've just got to accept it as, and you're a big proponent of security being a vital business function. We've got to stress that it's a vital business function, and how you deal with those various different aspects of it is, part of it, I think.
Really good. That was helpful, I thought. Actually, some interesting ideas came out there. Let me come back to you, Kathy. And I got a question here from Roger Warwick. Roger actually has the distinction of being the first ever panelist on the very first webinar. And he's got a specific question, but I think it's interesting to take a specific example here and just explore it for a minute. And that is the person in charge of managing travel security. Very, very important job, right? So, or risks for persons who travel on behalf of an organization. Should we use the word risk or security? Does it matter? Kathy, your thoughts on that very specific example. Then I'll come to you, Ray.
Well, I want to talk about the issue of calling it risk versus security, even across all domains and all job titles, because I really think that security is almost a last century title. It's a very narrowly drawn, focused, and it does conjure up guards, gates, and guns. So I do prefer the term risk management, and you can call it whatever you want, enterprise security risk management, enterprise risk management. I will just tell you that I've never had a client in 21 years use the term enterprise risk management or enterprise security risk management. So that's a little disconcerting, but I'm talking about how we describe it ourselves. So I do think risk management is a better term. It's a more modern term. It's a more comprehensive term. So I think we're headed in the right direction when we drop the word security, because it is backward looking. It is old fashioned, as it were. So one thing that I always say is look to the tech community for trends and where things are headed. And many of the tech companies have abandoned using the word security. They talk about trust and safety. And now the trust piece sometimes relates to their customers or clients, but the safety piece is very important. Now, I know there's environmental health and safety, and I'm not talking about that, nor are they. But maybe we have to have some sort of new thinking about what this next iteration of security is, because, you know, trust and safety makes a lot of sense to me. Risk management makes a lot of sense to me, but, you know, I'm less enamored of the word security.
Ah, very good. So, Raymond, do you agree?
I agree there with the overseas travel scenario. When I was dealing with people traveling overseas, rather than using the terms of security, which it kind of made me come across more as the corporate copper, by using risk management and identifying all the issues that could arise that way, it came across more as a safety issue, not security. I was still covering all the security aspects. However, it didn't come across as you'll do this this particular way. You give them strategies and advice and address all the potential risks, and they can move on their way. So I think Kathy's hit the mark there that risk management, when the scenario you're talking about, certainly is a better option. So the manager could be a manager, a risk management manager. However, as you get up the chain, and I will go up the chain on this one, where you start moving into the corporate level risk manager, they're the people that are going to start talking business language. So we're no longer talking the mitigation strategies that we do down the operations end. We're talking about the effect of the business. So these people start talking a totally different language. They're talking business language. They're talking money, which makes the company go. So there's a difference as you move up the chain, and they're the different skill sets that people are going to have to develop as they go up. And that could include doing a company directors course that they actually run in Australia, the UK, and other areas around the world, which gives you a better oversight as to the strategic level and the business language you've got to use and how you can actually sell your product or solution to the upper echelons of the C-suite.
Well, look, this is interesting. Mike, let me come to you. First of all, we have a webinar where they want to get rid of the most common word of all, security guard. Now we've got another one. They want to get rid of the word security. Mike, that's the one thing that identifies, people can identify with, however imprecise, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is, obviously. But I think security is a function of risk. Security is how you mitigate risk and how you deal with threats. And, you know, differentiating threats and risks is something that's probably a good way of starting as well. It is a lot of technology. It is how you, as I said before, it's about education. It's about the message we put out there. You know, the guns guards against spits is well, and people know what it is, and you say security, but you even say security and you're on my side, say assuming warming your hands on a brazier on a building site. But it's not that. It's sort of, I could tell you lots of stories that I've heard from other people of how they have returned a genuine return on investment on security operations, security products, functions, whatever. Lots of examples. And the people who, and it has changed, the people who are adopting a more modern approach, a more business focused approach, and it is business, is the same business as it is if you're finance or property management or HR or marketing. It's a part of the business. And, you know, I think the associations, the membership bodies, the trade associations, it's a question of getting that out there. It's not about, yes, you may deliver security officers. Yes, you may deliver CCTV. You may have a, you know, manufactured security fencing. It's all a factor in the solution. It's I don't know how you do it, but yes, I mean, security is important because people do know what it is, or they think they do. But if we can get people to understand that it's a business function, it's part of risk, it's part of protecting people, delivering profits.
So you would stick with the word security?
I think I probably would, but I do take Kathy's point about it being slightly dated, because I think people understand what it is, or at least think they do. But I think I probably would, but, you know, not into, you know, perhaps slightly reluctantly.
Wow, I definitely would keep it. But let me come on to this in a minute then. Let me come to you, Kathy, with James Spratt has got a question. And this is another good one, coming up this same issue from a different angle. And you're a good person to ask this, Kathy. For a new position, choose whichever level you like, Kathy. Given these differences in job titles, how does someone search for the right position? Good question, I think. Kathy, your thoughts?
A job seeker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to put in a lot of different search terms. And I always say use job descriptions, the job specifications that you can see out there on LinkedIn or Indeed or any number of places, and see what terms of art they're using. And they have changed. And, you know, Raymond and Mike have made the point about these are business people in the context of their organizations. If you're not a business person, and I don't care whether it's nonprofit or for-profit, if you're not a business person who knows how to manage resources and operate in a way that's going to be maximally efficient and effective for your organization, then you're not attuned to where that organization is and wants you to be. So I think most descriptions these days are pretty good at pulling together the terms of art and pull those apart, search using those, and try a lot of different things. Two things I would say that I know people don't want right now is a command and control person. That's out of favor. And they're also not looking for Rambo, somebody that's going to be over the top and try to lock them down. And, you know, pardon you for having a lockdown at the moment for a pandemic, but I mean, lock down their business or organization so that they can't do what they need to do. Security, risk management, whatever. It can't be the office of no.
Interesting, interesting. Well, Raymond, your thoughts, please.
There are some jobs or some elements of jobs where command and control are critical. Emergency management's one. I often I put out the thing there about situational leadership, where a manager or leader must be able to adapt to the situation that they're in. And if you're applying for a job, if you're going for a job where it's going to be dealing with national emergencies such as cyclones or hurricanes, earthquakes, etc., these are the sort of positions where sometimes having some form of disciplined background where the command and controls built into your ethos is perhaps a benefit, because you can quickly change from being a casual leader to one who can take charge and move things forward, then step away once the things are up and running. And you've got to be able to articulate that in your applications as well. And this is where it becomes a bit difficult as well, because not everyone can get that sort of experience when you're trying to apply for a position. But Kathy's right about looking at all the different job titles out there and looking at the job descriptions. I had a quick look at the different search terms, and the ones for security and cyber security. There are just so many different versions out there, job titles, that it's incredible. So it becomes a challenge for those people who are job seekers.
Okay,
Martin,
thank you very much.
Martin,
Yeah, carry on, come back. Yeah.
That he said, you know, command and control, when I talk about that, I don't talk about that as a strategy. It's a tactic. There are certain situations where a person in charge of an emergency response program has to employ a command and control approach. Certainly, you know, as Raymond said, in, you know, a cataclysmic event like a tornado or something like that. But I'm talking about not employing that as a strategic leadership posture.
Yeah. Okay, I understand. Let me, Mike, come to you first with this. It's one that's a few people have mentioned in different ways. Simon Cham, Chris Middleton has mentioned it. Is this link, and you've all mentioned it in different ways, the link between cyber and physical. Now, here's my question, starting with you, Mike. Can you see and you mentioned that the approach to risk is exactly the same for both, Mike, and maybe we can play on that. But if the job titles meant the same in both worlds, that would be that would present the security world in an image that was much more understandable. Is that a doable proposition, Mike?
Yeah, just doable. Certainly doable. We just need people to buy into the idea of it. And the same way that I say, if you're a doctor, you're a doctor. You're a doctor. Yeah, well, you're Dr. Gill. You're a PhD. But if you're a medical doctor, you're a doctor. People that say, you know, you could be a whatever else, a specialist. You're still a doctor. You're a consultant. You're a senior registrar. So having these these generic titles are really important. The specialisms matter to the person concerned because a CSO, for example, probably needs to have an understanding of everything. Not to say do everything, not an expert at everything, no one's an expert at everything, but have an understanding of it. But you know, he or she will employ a cyber expert, they'll apply a physical expert, they'll apply someone to write policies, whatever. So having the general titles is important and it's doable. I think we need to be not necessarily just be a bit more critical, review things more critically and say, well, you're a security manager, what does that mean? So it could be physical, it could be cyber, it could be a converged risk, it could be all sorts of things. And there's no reason why we need to have different titles for every single discipline. That goes to the job description, that goes for the role in the company.
That's encouraging. Raymond, do you agree? Do you agree that we could have the similar job titles or the same job titles for the cyber world and the physical security world?
I agree that we could have some generic titles, even up to director. However, having the specialisation attached to it, because as we move into quantum computing, we're going to find new technical skills coming into the security side as they evolve to adapt to quantum computing. So you could be a director, but your specialisation may be quantum computing security. Now, if you're a job seeker wanting to get into that area, the job title itself, the specialisation, gives you a good indication of how you should be addressing your application, what skill sets you should need, etc. The way it is now, it's a bit of a hit and miss sometimes as to how you're going to frame your application, unless you go delve deeply into the job description and perhaps touch base with the company. So yeah, I think this is going to be evolving.
Yeah, okay, I understand that. Kathy, I will come to you on this because this issue of physical and cyber is a big one, isn't it? I mean, in an ideal world, it would so help to sell the security world to outsiders if there was a common terminology. Mike and Raymond are quite positive to a certain extent this could be done. Do you share their enthusiasm?
No. Move on. No, I'm kidding.
No. That's a good answer. Let's hear.
They're two different domains. And, you know, frankly, all this talk for years about converged security, I don't see many organizations doing it because quite a few years ago, cyber became the tail wagging the dog. And those cyber programs are so complex, so different from the standpoint of core knowledge and skills and backgrounds that they need their own lane. And I think they need their own nomenclature. I know they have it. And they also need their own titles. So I think if you're talking physical security, risk management, enterprise security, risk management, whatever you want to call it, have your own titles as well. Be as specific as in your language, because, you know, I think it's a huge impediment to recruiters, whether you're a recruiter such as myself and you're trying to find these people with these very different skill sets, or whether you're an employer looking for those. I had a conversation just recently with a potential client. They had a job posted on LinkedIn and Indeed and all the usual places for quite some time. It was a security technology specialist, so somebody who's an expert in access control systems. They were overwhelmed with people with IT backgrounds because of the confusion. And I gave them some advice on how to separate it out. I haven't heard from them since. I think they've probably got the description and the title and the job, position details correct now, and they can find it. But you're talking across purposes when you're trying to go down the same lane. They are two separate lanes.
Interesting. Mike, do you want to come back on Mike?
I do. I mean, Kathy is not wrong in many ways, but I think because I remember years ago when we used to advertise in newspapers, I put a job advertised in the Telegraph. I think it was for a CCTV salesperson, whatever it was, and others. The experience essential. And so I got an application. Some folks said, right, I'm into this role. So what is CCTV? And you think, oh, you know, they didn't know what the words meant. So that's I think hopefully if you're clear in the job description, what's involved, that's what's important. The title should be less important because the title, across an organization, you want some structure, some levels and hierarchy to a degree, so people know what they are, where they sit in the role, you know. And I know you can't be a technology expert cyber, technology expert physical. It's the same, you can still subdivide it, but I think having some general terms in the factors, because some people change. Some people, there's no reason why a cyber security person who is really good on IP networks and everything else couldn't then move across to a network that's a control system. The technology is often broadly similar, the skills broadly similar. So I think we can unify a bit, but with some specialisms.
Brett, if I can ask you very briefly for a final comment on this one, because I want to move on to a final question. So Kathy's saying they're two different worlds, recognise them as such. It's easier for recruiters and people in fact might better understand it if we didn't try and confuse the two. Raymond.
I think it comes back to the corporate culture, the national culture, and human nature. They all become impediments to achieving any of this. Individuals like their titles, individuals like recognition for what they do. They can be specialists. Companies will take the easy route, and of course, nations that will go their own way. I know ACES International put out the CSO guidelines, and I've seen some areas use it, but they'll take a bit out of it. They've taken the title, and they'll take a couple of paragraphs out of it, and the rest of it gets discarded. So it's not a simple solution. And I think it comes back to the culture of the business and, of course, human nature.
Okay, fair enough. Final question then. A question from Nicholas Reed. Kathy, Nicholas makes a point about the need for a clearly mapped progressional structuring security careers. Now, this is actually being worked on in various countries. I know, definitely in the UK. In fact, David Scott, who was a panelist the other day, is part of an initiative to do this. Kathy, is that right, that once we get to that sort of position, even if there's two, Kathy, one for cyber, one for physical, until we get to that position, this is going to be difficult to sell as easily to those who don't yet know about the security sector, but could be very good at it? Kathy?
Well, I think it would be definitely advantageous to do that. And I think it was 2 years ago, I participated, maybe last year, with ASIS on their Career Pathways project. And they did come out with a good document that talks about how there is career progression. You know, one of the central questions I'm asked for almost every time I have a discussion with somebody about a search that I'm working on is, what is the career path upward? So it's important to people. And, you know, if they're at the top, they want to know about visibility, but if they're anywhere else in the organization, they want to know about the pathway. So the more that we could do to formalize, identify, structure, and normalize this, I think it would be very productive.
Mike?
Well, in the UK, I'm also involved with the Security Commonwealth. I'm on the board of that, which is an association of associations. And through that, last year, we helped set information through to a UK government document, which I'm looking at the moment, which is the Government Security Profession Career Framework. I'm not even sure if it was made public, but certainly we helped with the draft, helped with the information and that is 243 pages, and that is broadly the same information, same pathway for every job in government security, physical, cyber, investigations. It's laid out the same way with the same information, what you can do, what qualification you can do, what certification you can do, who you can join, and the format is the same throughout all government security roles. And if the UK government can do it, anyone can, let's face it, I suppose. But you can do it. It's not saying it's easy, but it can be done. And that's progression through the different roles, different ranks, different associations within government security.
Okay, Rami, if I can ask you just to comment very quickly on a question from Anthony Esquerdo. Do you think, well, here's the question. Do you feel that companies are trying to double down by expecting a candidate to have both proficient physical security skills hand in hand with cybersecurity skills as a cost-saving initiative? Raymond, just very quickly, your thoughts on that. Is there a sense in which this is doubling down by trying to combine both, or is this just a recognition of what's required going forward?
I think it's a recognition of what's going forward. I myself had to move into not just physical security, but into information technology security many years ago. And it actually assisted me. You don't have to be an expert, but having a knowledge of both areas means you can ask the right questions to the right people and get the right answers for your organisation. So I think that is the way forward.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Well, look, this debate is going to go on. I'm going to ask each of you for a final comment, please. And I guess this is the important thing I'm keen to understand. One of the questions that I got in advance was from Timothy Nzomo. And he started off as you started off, Kathy, as I thought you were saying. Listen, don't worry about job titles. You're getting bogged down in the wrong issue. The issue isn't job titles. It's about seeming to be professional and competent at many of the things you were saying. Final comments on this. How important is this subject? I just asked if I could have just 20 seconds from each of you. Kathy first.
I think it is misplaced attention. So look at the role, look at the responsibilities, look at the career opportunity, look at the organization and their mission, and see if you're aligned with that. Worry less about the title, because titles fix themselves. They're only important in an outward facing way. What appeals to you from an internal and responsibilities and objectives and goals perspective? Keep that in mind and you'll be better off for it.
Interesting. Mike, does it matter?
It does, but it shouldn't. I mean, we are too obsessed with it. I'm just struck with something that my daughter's headmistress said some years ago when she was, head speech sort of thing, and it was something along the lines of, the jobs your girls will do when they leave school haven't been invented yet. So we can't get bogged down with the job title, and it's true. It's largely true. The job she's doing now wasn't there when she was at school. So it's changing all the time. New things are coming along. What Kathy said is right. Look at the job, look at the role, look at the opportunities, the skill sets, the opportunities, the pay. These things are much more important. Being tied down to a title is too limiting.
Fair enough. Final comment from you then, Raymond.
Yes, don't get tied down to titles. In some cultures, unfortunately, they are part of that culture. We have to accept that. However, ultimately, when we look at our career, the job title doesn't become, it becomes irrelevant, because it's a job you do and how you perform that job and the skill set you bring to them is what the company wants, not the title.
And as you said, the companies will do their own thing anyway.
Yes.
Raymond, Mike and Kathy, thank you very much indeed for your input into the webinar. That was an exceptionally good conversation. Thank you also to the audience for all your questions. We could have gone on, and that's the idea of thought leadership. We inspire ideas, inspiring thinking. We don't try to solve all problems, and we leave more questions to be answered in a future webinar. Certainly got a few of those today. Thank you very much indeed. Just a final few comments, if I might please, just to say to you that OSPA entries are still open in South Africa. They're open until the 15th of February, so still a chance to enter the OSPAs in South Africa. Award ceremonies coming up. On the Benelux, on the 24th of November, there's a Thought Leadership Congress at the same time. So please make sure you join that. On the 8th of December, a webinar and awards in Kenya. On the 15th of December, a webinar and awards in Germany, all being done virtually for obvious reasons. And let me get you to just please pay attention to this. An awards ceremony with a difference. If you've seen awards ceremonies up to now and thought they need to be a bit different, Wednesday, the 9th of December, 3:30, Tackling Economic Crime Awards. I promise you, you will not have seen an award ceremony quite like this yet. And I also guarantee you, if you thought the economic crime world weren't up for a laugh, wait till you get to that. Techers.com, register in advance, please. It's free to attend. Finally, just to say that we go through it all again on Thursday, where a slightly earlier time of 1:40, in collaboration with the National Association for Healthcare Security, we've got a joint webinar on the future directions of the security in the healthcare sector. All we've been hearing about healthcare, they're all distracted on the front line. What's happening to security? What's going on? Where does it go from here? What's it learned? The sorts of lessons you can learn from that sector may be broadly applicable. So do join us, please, if you're into that at 1:40 Greenwich Mean Time on Thursday. Well, thank you very much indeed to Hannah Miller and Christine Brooks in the background. Thank you very much indeed to you, the audience, for all your questions and your input. Thank you very much indeed to my panel, Kathy, Mike and Raymond. Excellent comments and plenty to build on. And wherever you are in the world, I hope till we meet again, hopefully on Thursday, stay safe.